Big
Got big eyes for the show. I'm singing in the show. I want to be up about duty time. So, there you go. Good morning, good afternoon, good day. Happy Sunday. Welcome to the Speaker's Corner, where we speak about speaking. And that's what we'll start talking about. But let me go ahead and introduce you to who's going to be talking about talking, and that's going to be Frank Heathington. Say hello, Frank. Unbelievable. And also we've got Thom home. Say hi, Thom.
Hi, Thom.
Hi, Thom. So we were speaking before the live section started, which, by the way, if you ever want to join our previous to live section, feel free to just shoot an email to any one of us, as you can probably get our contact info from the YouTube that you're watching now. Send something to us that says you'd like to talk to us before the show, and you can certainly do that. If you're on the YouTube right now, you can join us in the Q&A, where we can see your questions and answer them appropriately. And we'd like to thank our mothers for the womb and board. That's WOMB and board, right? Because they fed us. They fed us, and they provided shelter. But speaking on that, things that we got from our mothers, we were speaking before the show about accents and where those accents are and where those accents come from. And I wanted to throw an idea out here and let Thom respond. So there is a conversation by linguists that the texting language of choice around the world tends to be English or manipulated English. And that in most places around the world, people do have native tongues, but it's more and more that they're learning English, and it's gotten such a head start and languages are dying at such a rate that at some point we probably will have one language that's across the world that everybody is able to speak. And when they're all able to speak this one tongue, and the only difference would be accents. And instead of having a whole distinct language that keeps the difference between Spain and France, now there's just going to be two different accents that separate those two things. Thoughts?
The one language is Star Trek. The Babelfish from Hitchhiker's Guide. Sure. Two
But
thoughts.
a Babelfish is a thing that translates all those
things. Exactly.
Right? But this is, everybody knows it.
Two thoughts that kind of hold this, or one thought that pushes this idea forward, and one thought that holds it back. The first one is idea that pushes us forward that's already happening is there's a book out. I can't remember the authors. It's called, but it's basically about Globalish. Globalish, which is a combination of global and English. That there already exists this kind of a version of English. It's predominantly in Asia, in the South Asian countries, or those the recently economically developed or advanced nations where there is this need to communicate amongst each other, and so English is kind of chosen as the
you got a Bangladeshi and a Thai man that stand next to each other, and they both talk English to each other and choose neither of their native tongues. Right,
but it's a stripped down kind of economic version of English, because these are people that the Bangladeshi may be not the one I want to bring in the room, because the Bangladeshi may very well have had a chance to practice English with a native speaker, because of colonial history.
So a Thai man and a Chinese man,
right? Who have learned English from another non-native English speaker, so they are kind of throwing out. There exists now in English that kind of throws out a lot of the conventions or rules or weird rules of standard English, and so there's this Globalish they talk about. So potentially that could happen. Where I see it being held back is there are ideas that can't be expressed in English. There's just the other day, I wish I remember the word, but it was Nabokov, the Russian novelist who wrote half his career he wrote in Russian, and then the second half of his career he wrote in English. He wrote most famously, probably people know, Lalita as one of his favorite, famous English, which always I hate people who can write great novels in one language, but then can turn around and be like, I'm going to write a great novel in another language. Screw you. That's cheating, or that's not fair.
You're too damn smart. You're too damn smart.
Be awesome in one language, not two. You're making us all look bad.
Yeah. The rest of the world just can't keep up with that. I understand you're a cunning linguist. I'm not.
Another one, I think, Joseph Conrad, who wrote Heart of Darkness. He now I'm getting sidetracked from the sidetrack. Joseph Conrad, who wrote Heart of Darkness, which was the story that, or the novella that eventually would become Apocalypse Now. He grew up speaking German, and then his family emigrated to France. And then he moved to England where he learned English, and then eventually he wrote. So it's like it was his third language, and he writes amazing. So anyway, but Nabokov, this is getting back to your point.
Right.
There was this great post, and I wish I remember the Russian word, but Nabokov, who again is one of these people who's been able to like shift languages,
right,
but still says there is no English word for, and I can't remember the Russian word, but it's a certain type of sadness, but it's kind of an existential sadness, and it goes, and that's where languages, a universal language would be great, but then there becomes these instinctive cultural terms or ideas that can't really translate.
Right. So go back to your concept. Go back to your concept of globalish, right? So what if English doesn't have that word? That's fine. You just take the Russian word and put it into globalish. And globalish is 90% one language, but it has certain terms that only exist in something else. We invent and include terms that never existed into English all the time, right? So if it just happens to be a concept that's stolen from another language, then so be it. But my argument on why English is also a strong contender for globalish is that it has this concept of shoulda, woulda, coulda, and many other languages don't even have that concept in language. They don't have that, well, if you do this, then this should happen. They don't really have that concept in the verbiage that you can use. Specifically, those South Asian languages. They always kind of believe that things that are, and that's just how it is. It's just that things are, and you can't really, speak to. You can't really speak to them not being the way that they are based on some fictitious concept. And I can't remember what that's called. The subjunctive. The subjunctive does not exist.
Subjunctive.
That's today's secret word. It's subjunctive.
Well, it's that way when you listen to someone speaking Spanish, because sometimes they're just like internet. Internet was a word invented in English, not in Spanish.
Right, but they'll use Oreo cookie and use internet straight in Spanish.
Or like Sports Center.
Huh? Sports Center? Yeah. Well, that's a title.
Same kind of thing.
Yep.
By the way, have you ever watched I've watched a baseball game in I was in Montreal, and I watched like the Yankees play, and it was kind of fun and funny because obviously they're speaking in French, but because those broadcasters are bilingual, they're speaking with a Canadian French accent. Derek Jeter immediately dropped into that flat English accent to say an English word.
Yep.
I don't know.
So I don't know. I just think accents are a fun thing to watch over our lifetime, because we will see, I say, in our lifetime, the melding of all these separate concepts based on the internet world.
Well, this is two different things. Accents versus languages, because accents is something within a language. Language is external.
So
you have seen the homogenous. You already are seeing and have over the century seen the homogenization of accents. Like I know the UK, which used to be famous for the diversity of accents, and you're seeing basically the London accent starting to hold sway over the entire country, and you're seeing a lot of these smaller regional accents just get washed out. Will that happen in the U.S.?
Well, it already has to a certain extent. It already has to a certain extent, but I think that lets people have an identity. Right? Mm-hmm. Why are Texas accents often confused with being Southern?
Oh, are they? Yeah.
I don't think that they are.
From the outsider, maybe?
Yeah, from a Londoner, yeah, they think that Texas is Southern.
Do you think
I can certainly hear. Anybody that's south of the Mason-Dixon can tell the difference between Texas and Arkansas.
But someone north of the Mason-Dixon sure as shit can't.
That's sad.
Kate's fascinating. Like when I've met a friend of hers, and I was like, old workmate of hers, and I was not only able to pinpoint that she was from Tennessee, but was able to figure out that she was probably from somewhere around Knoxville.
Okay.
She was like, "How the hell did you figure that out?" I'm like, "The Tennessee accent is pretty an easy
stout.
one to pick out."
Yeah. So here's another one. I got a Pennsylvania one. I had a waitress that came in and talked, and she's like, "Yeah, I just moved down here." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, did you move from Pennsylvania?" She's like, Yeah. And I'm like, "I'll bet it was near Carlisle, Pennsylvania." And she's like, "Yeah, it was 10 minutes from Carlisle." Like, named the city. And she's like, "How the hell did you know that?" And I'm like, "Well, there's a couple of different accents in Pennsylvania. You
I
kind of
also
got your
stole your ID. I've been stalking you for months.
But it wasn't on there. It was like,
Okay.
yeah. But it wasn't on there. Yes. No, I didn't.
Busted.
All right, so enough on accents.
Yeah.
I had a topic that I sent out to everybody before the show, and let me see if I can introduce this and speak on it for a few moments,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so I was listening to a history show from C-SPAN on a podcast whenever I was on a very long drive. And it was a history lesson from somebody at Harvard that it was like an hour and a half long.
Neil
And I'll
deGrasse
give you,
Tyson.
it was not Neil deGrasse Tyson. It was a history professor, and I don't think Neil deGrasse Tyson knows a whole lot about history, seeing as he's an astrophysicist. But the topic of the discussion was basically the way that the U.S. created its amazingness based on the that valley up there in the Northeast, in the Connecticut Valley through Massachusetts. What's that valley called, Tom?
Pioneer Valley?
The what now?
Massachusetts, the Pioneer Valley in Western Mass?
So it's western Massachusetts and southern Vermont and Connecticut, right? Where Springfield is?
Yeah, Pioneer Valley.
Okay, so the Pioneer Valley has a number, and it was the entirety of the industry in making weapons in the United States in the 17 and 1800s. Springfield, which is the National Armory, where they made all the weapons for World War I, and before that were making weapons for the War of 1812, et cetera, led a revolution in the way that things were made after the War of 1812. In the War of 1812, all weapons were kind of made one-off and serially. So you made one barrel and it fit one stock, and you couldn't exchange those things. So you had to have a real gunsmith to make each part fit with each part so that it would all work, right? So then they pioneered this concept, which was a French concept. But since the French were in the middle of their own storming of the Bastille and reorganization, they never did anything with these concepts of creating interchangeable parts. So this,
Napoleon.
what's that?
It would have helped Napoleon.
It would have helped Napoleon, but he didn't do anything with it. But the Americans picked up on this concept and ran with it, right? So they stole, as good creators do, and then were able to build all of these interchangeable parts. But it wasn't about the interchangeable parts guns that really made the magic that turned the U.S. into super powerful. There was a policy at the Springfield Armory that if you were to sell anything to the United States Armory, to the U.S. Army, then you had to have all of your tooling and all of your design open. It was an open philosophy. So if you made anything, you need, talent borrows, genius steals. But you had to make all of those concepts open. And the United States was great at industrial espionage, so we stole things from all over the world, and we brought them back here, and then it was an open door policy on how all that stuff worked. And the argument that this guy made is that the tooling that was required to make all of these things ended up making the machines that could turn out sewing machines faster than anybody else, could turn out eventually cars and other types of heavily manufactured goods, because they created this tooling industry that for 150 years was in that Pioneer Valley. And so that's where they would make the tools to make all the rest of the stuff throughout the country. And so that expertise, because it was completely open door and they were not allowed to have proprietary tools to make stuff, meant that everybody was able to leapfrog. Every time one guy that was really smart created a new concept, everybody else could steal this idea freely and openly, and they could just go in and look at the plans and see what it was and go to a local smith to have another one of these lathes made to make their widget. And so that industry created the industrial giant that was the United States, that won us World War I, won us World War II, and created the economic powerhouse that led us to rule the world with Coca-Cola and Ford Motor Company.
I'm not going to make any separate conversation about the whole we won World War I, we won World War II.
We're back-to-back champs.
First of all, World War I, we came in late in the season,
we
won one game, we were like, champions! It's like, no, that's not how it works. But yeah, so how are you, obviously, you bring this up, this is true, this is obviously, the interchangeable parts was one of the radical, not radical ideas, but one of the
revolutionary
concepts that really helped truly propel the industrial age, not just steam engines and the locomotive.
It's really helpful in Civ 5 once you hit interchangeable parts, because you get encryption.
Truly interchangeable.
Wait, which game is this?
That's Civ 5, Sid Meier's Civilization 5.
And where is the interchangeable parts?
Speak, Frank.
I don't know. It's one of the huge things you get in the technology tree.
Oh, it is important. It's very important.
And it opens up muskets, and you can fight muskets against people on horseback. Fantastic.
Right. So huge. I bring all of that up relate to today, right? And the relate to today goes in the concept of, all right, so now there's this open source movement that is strongly rooted in California, but is being implemented across the U.S. and across the world, really. And it's that same concept of share your work. Do whatever it is you're going to do it well, but share your work so that nobody else has to duplicate what steps you already succeeded at, right? Mm-hmm. And so that concept, I think, is going to be the one that gives us our next revolution in the technology age. The people and efforts that it takes to design a Microsoft Windows and to support it means that you have to have high cost for that product, which then that extra cost incurs barriers to entry, incurs all kinds of other problems with doing what it is that you're going to do. And I think the toolbox of our technology age will be filled with things like OpenSSL, which allows everybody to do a secure server. But right? So Heartbleed, if you've heard of that in the news, that came from OpenSSL, and SSL was the secure socket layer, which is the part that lets you have an HTTPS on the beginning of your websites and encrypts your traffic as it goes across the internet. They found a way to get around that, and the patch was released within hours of the problem becoming public. If there was a private industry that did that, there would have been cost involved. There was no cost involved. Okay, so these things really make it much more financially beneficial to do things in our technology world. And I think that open source movement is going to be the same thing as interchangeable parts in Civ 64 when we do this in 200 years.
There's one element that I'm not loath to bring up because I'm actually kind of amused that I can point out is your example about how interchangeable parts really kind of came to the fore. You used the example that it came really from war innovation through war, right. Which obviously was government investment in R&D,
yes.
Correct?
Mm-hmm.
So, would you say that there is an important role to be played by government in promoting innovation and economic development through said innovation?
Can I give you the word begrudgingly before I say anything?
You may.
begrudgingly, there is a role for government to play in some of these things. Well, there is a role for central investment, and the easiest way to have central investment is through the government. And I just got my breakfast delivered to me. It is the most amazing. I'm going to move my camera so that you can see what my glorious girlfriend just sent to me.
Oh, the eggs are like a heart.
I know. She made a heart in the eggs.
Oh.
Kat, Tom mentioned that you have a heart in your eggs.
That's to imply that the cholesterol will kill you.
Oh, man. Do I need this grease after last night's event? Oh, but it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun to go hang out. All right. So do you think that this... Okay, but the internet was the same way as this other, which was a government-funded project that went private. All of this weapons making and weapons manufacturing was the way that we've seen success in history, which is it starts as a government project to get seed money. As soon as it gets some traction, the government pulls out and lets private enterprise go. So I can agree to that world where the government is really a central investor and then pulls out as soon as they're basically the quickest sellout in town. Right, so they jump in, they seed the thing, but as soon as it gets some traction, they get their money back and get the heck out. They sell it to Google.
So obviously, or they sell it to Google. So with a central investment, i.e., because obviously it isn't the government that's paying for this; it's you, me, Frank's cats, all of us paying for these projects. So how long? But obviously at the same time, you can't. Because we see this with drug companies, drug companies are one of the perfect examples of what do they allow, like a 20-year? How long's the patent on drugs? 10-year, 20-year?
20.
Before it can be like generics can legally be made, manufactured. With a government investment in technology or the development of technology for non-government use, or say for how long should a patent last, or how long? Ooh, I think I just lost your mic. What's that?
No, I got a patent last here. So a patent should last 2 iterations of that place, right? So if it's a cell phone, cell phones are, a generation is basically 18 to 20 months. So it should last 2 generations of cell phones. A patent should. So if you patent something in cell phones, right? The industry generation is 20 months. So you get 40 months worth of patent head start. Because really, patent to me, it means that you should have a complete head start on any one given thing, right? So it should be the production time of that particular industry, and then 2 generations of that industry. So if you call it 2.5 times a generation, then that should be what it is, right? So you go into cartoons, right? How often is there a new way of doing things, a new generation of cartoons? 10 years? So you should have probably 25 years of Mickey Mouse being patented, and then you're done?
Oh, it's so funny that you use that example, because that's the worst thing. Because like the patent that exists on things like that. Because Mickey Mouse is still not transferred into public domain,
right? And Mickey Mouse is the reason that our patent rule is so screwed up right now. Because Disney has spent so much money to hold on to Steamboat Willie.
Frank, you're saying?
Is SpongeBob patented?
Still is, will be, under the Mickey Mouse laws, which is hilarious to say Mickey Mouse law because it's a double meaning. These Mickey Mouse laws.
I see what you did there.
Mr. Krabs' shack? Is that what the name of where SpongeBob works? Is still very much patented and protected. Yeah. Thank you, Sonny Bono.
Is that who did it, Mr. Sonny Bono?
Sonny Bono is one of his key legislative successes was to extend copyright protection for
Mickey Mouse.
For creative things like basically like things like Mickey Mouse.
I think there needs to be more innovation for shared music online, so we can get angel investors to invest in things like Facebook.
Is that English that you're talking?
Like the guy that invented Napster.
Mike, what's his
That
name?
money and then invest in Facebook.
Oh my God, I just had the most amazing breakfast.
You're done?
Yeah, I just ate all of that while you guys were watching. And you should patent that, my breakfast. It was awesome.
How do you patent somebody named Gerald Schroeder?
I was right. It was called the Sonny Bono Copyright Terms Extension Act. Thank you, Ziggy, for that. I assume that was Ziggy.
Yeah.
Searching that up. Wow.
Wow.
I remember my random House legislative measures.
Don't we all wish we had the recollection of House measures?
And that's why I'm still winning at Quiz Up American Government. Love you.
So I think.
how
Do
do
you
we
think
fix
that?
this?
Okay. So how do we fix this? I think the way my argument has been that you should have 2 generations of any one given thing, right? So you make a car. How long is a car generation in the auto industry? 10 years, 8 years, 10 years, right?
Well, that's
so
the
you
question.
should have,
Who decides? I like your two iteration policy, but who decides? And also, someone could say, "But this isn't." Yeah. How do you decide?
So how do you decide? I think
what an
that
iteration is.
right. Okay. So I think that you let's call it that you have a panel that is put together, an IP panel that happens every time there's a census. Right? And there's a categorization that happens every census for all the industries that exist. And every industry gets a generation in that particular, at that time. Every 10 years, there's a new bar set for how long the generation is. And then that dictates where the patent law goes.
Okay.
Right? And so cell phones, when they started, were a 4-year generation item. Now they're an 18-month generation item. Right? And I would call the generations kind of the difference between the iPhone 4 and the iPhone 5. Not the 5 and the 5S. Right? So if you go to that TikTok concept that Microsoft has made so popular, right? And you say every time there's a tick and not the time that there's a talk is a generation. And that should be enough.
There's a little bit of clarification. There's a question about when we're talking about patent, when it versus a company patent versus a person patent or a creator patent. I think we're really kind of hitting on when corporations develop some kind of innovation and then basically hold on to it. There has to be tiered rules, I think. If I'm a creator of a concept, or I've created something. Geez, now we're getting really hard. If I create something and I'm developing on something, I should be able to patent it as I build my idea.
Agreed.
As opposed to being just a patent troll, someone who creates an idea but never does anything and just sits and waits for someone else to do.
To try and do it, and then they license the same thing.
And then they suddenly sue them and say, no, you need to pay me.
So why not this? Why not this? If you apply for a patent, you get 1 generation until you produce a product. And you get a re-up for a 2nd generation at the instant you've produced a product. Right?
Okay.
So
that first gen is like, okay, you've got an idea.
You get 1 generation to create and produce this concept. And if you can produce it within that 1 generation, your head start now gets you get a whole nother generation where nobody can use that idea. Right? And if it takes you 6 months to put it out and you've got a 5-year generation, now you've got a whole nother 9.5 years to profit from that before anybody else gets to start on it.
Right. Okay.
But that's gonna create a lot more copycats. And really, I don't think that our world needs more propriety in what it is that we're doing. We need more openness, Because if somebody smart figured something out and somebody can't use what somebody else has already figured out because it's patented, we're losing a lot of brain power and a lot of success in our
but
technology worlds.
But then you're losing the, I'm suddenly we're flipping tables and I'm playing the traditionally Jeff role of thing. But then you're losing the capitalist spirit that says that if I can't make clear and defined profit off of something, but I'm always going to live in fear of the other laying in wait to prey upon my genius, then why should I even bother this? You're presupposing this altruistic society where we're all working together to keep pushing the envelope and blah blah. I'm like, really? No.
No, people are trying to make money.
Make from scratch.
Yep.
Want to put a little, want a little something for down the road.
That's right.
Because also, as we've seen with video game companies who make, you land that one great idea, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to keep making ideas. It's like, no, this may have been your one chance. This is your hit.
Yep.
So you max out what you're going to get for this, and then you move on and try to work on other things. But don't assume, it's like those investment commercials. Success today is not an indication of future returns on investment.
So does that mean that any one group, any one individual can basically put this, what is it, like in sports, you have your franchise player, right? So you can have your franchise patent.
Oh, yeah. Oh, interesting. Oh,
so
wow.
if you're Samsung, you can have 500 patents that all have the 2-generation rule, but you get one franchise patent, right? That's like your franchise player that gets twice whatever that is, right?
Nice. Okay, I'm liking that. That's
so
clever,
to get to switch your franchise patent, you can then drop something else that was your previous franchise patent and apply for this other to become your franchise patent. Yeah, you totally jazzed
I'm liking that. I'm liking that. That's a really cool.
We solve it here every week.
Yep.
I'm an idea man.
Because industry should be more like the NFL, i.e., where you
and
don't
less
have,
like the NBA and racist.
Less like Major League Baseball. Less like Major League Baseball, where you have the franchises that have all the money, all the hat or all the cash, and kind of just dominate. Whereas there's a little bit of parity, because parity creates dynamism, and then that's why the NFL is one of the most successcul. Which is actually going to eventually be my things that piss me off. They shouldn't piss me off a little.
Okay,
bit.
So I've got another sports thing for you, real quick. Say, who are you a fan of in football? You're a Redskins fan, right?
I'm a Washington fan. Yes.
Okay, so say the Redskins in the off season.
The Washington team. Yes.
Yeah, the Washington Redskins. The Washington Senators, if you want to call them that, I don't care.
That's
the Washington football team, right? They decide that they are going to trade every single one of their players to the Raiders. And then the Raiders are going to give their players to Kansas City. And Kansas City is sending all of their players to Washington. Right? So now there's a whole new set of players. Not a single human is on that team that was on that team last season.
Right.
Do you still root for the Redskins? Do you still root for the Washington team?
I do, yeah.
And my concept there is that in sports, specifically in professional sports, but also in collegiate sports, we are rooting primarily for a brand and a uniform, and not for any team. Because the team is defined by the individuals on it, and we are actually rooting for the uniform and the branding, which is the only thing that's consistent in that club.
The one exception to that, because you're giving a severe example of shifting the entire squad here and this squad there and that squad there. Right. The exception becomes when you have something that, or a player or a CEO that becomes so identified with that brand, with that franchise, with that industry, that you tend to kind of follow or support or invest in them when they move.
Mark
elsewhere.
Cuban,
Peyton Manning.
Oh, right.
I know a lot of Colts fans. Including a coworker of mine who still kind of roots for him in Denver. It's another team, it's another franchise, but still, because of what he was able to do for that industry, let's say, there's a belief that or a desire to see him succeed in the next business, and so that's where Wow, we are all over the place today.
I'm loving this.
I mean, we're keeping a thread going. We're not. We haven't started drooling out of our mouths.
Yeah, we haven't fallen off the rails yet, but the rails are going places we did not know.
Yeah. So now we're shuffling a little bit. I need to move to one of my classic favorite things that I don't do every week, but I try to do, which is things that piss Thom off that shouldn't piss him off, and it's actually related to the NFL.
Okay.
I wanted to post something last night about this, but
you saved it for the show.
I saved it for the show.
Johnny Manziel pisses you off.
Close.
Close. Johnny Manziel doesn't piss anybody off.
I wanted to post about this, but then I saw too many people were very in the exaltations of celebration that I was like, I don't want to be the guy who's like the Debbie Downer. But now that it's a day later, I can be totally Debbie Downer. So yesterday, with the 249th pick, Michael Sam of the University of Missouri was drafted by the St. Louis Rams, I believe, becoming the first openly gay player to be drafted in the NFL. So, a lot of exultations, yes, doors broken down. Here's where I Here's where I become Debbie Downer, and I say, NFL, pause on the patting yourself on the back. If I read this stat correctly, what's the lowest what's the lowest that an SEC Defensive Player of the Year has been drafted?
Let's call it the 120th pick overall.
No, not even close.
50th overall.
Getting closer. 17 is what I'd read.
17th overall?
17th overall is the lowest.
What? Not out of the first round.
In the first round.
Always in the first round.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, not you're right. Not out of the first round. So, if I read that stat right, I want to say this is where I become the Debbie Downer. Yeah. So this is a victory for Michael Sam. This is not a no. Getting drafted is a victory for any individual.
Okay.
So I want to say kudos to Michael Sam. NFL, don't pat yourselves on the back just yet, because y'all didn't break any doors down when history indicates that there's still some heavy effing prejudice if I don't know. So that's why. Sorry, things that piss me off that shouldn't, because I should be kind of celebrating and saying hurrah
to you.
But there's this kind of really 249th. It took that effing long. To use an expression that I hate, it's about time. But I'm going to use that expression. It was more than about time. And did I lose everyone? Oh, what happened? Okay, I just can't hear Jeff or see Jeff, so I just kind of paused. Can we see Jeff and hear Jeff? Okay, so then I will continue. Jeff's taken a...
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yay! I can hear you.
Oh, God! I had a technology problem here, and apparently I can't find a camera. So I'm going to be off camera for a minute.
I thought I'd done something wrong. I was like, did I upset you?
No, I bumped a USB cable for a hard drive that was in the same hub as my video camera and my microphone, and my video camera does not work.
Is this the fun that I'm going to enjoy when I build my own computer?
Yeah, if you use a 15-year-old USB hub, then yes.
Okay.
Yes, I use a 15-year-old USB hub.
'Cause it's the same thing!
And I interject the random country of the day.
God, yes, would I love that. I mean, I would love that so much. So much.
All right, so three guesses apiece.
Ooh.
I give you 3 hints.
Okay, go.
The actual full title of this country is called the Oriental Republic of blank. Okay.
Uh-huh.
It's
already racist.
It's got. That's not going to help you guys. I was going to say it's got 94 airports, so that's not going to help you.
94 airports. That does help me.
If I give away this last clue, Tom will probably get this instantaneously.
Yes.
But they just legalized marijuana.
Cambodia.
No.
Why would it? Oh, I love that. Like, well, Thom will get this after this. I'm like, because I smoke pot.
No.
Thanks for the
You're
bust.
Ziggy says Singapore.
Wrong continent.
Wrong continent.
I'll give you South America.
It's Uruguay, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Oriental.
Oriental. Oh, that's right, because it means that's right, across the river of.
Yeah, Oriental
Yeah.
Republic or Uruguay.
Because Orient means across the river.
There's something weird about how it works in language. That's right.
Yeah, so there you go.
Wow. I would have never, ever, 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 ever guessed.
47% Roman Catholic.
And I think we had the More You Know segment, Frank. You shared a term with us?
That would be I completely forgot the name of the term. A tittle. A tittle is the actual icon that shows a loading screen on something like YouTube or Netflix.
Wow. So the little in progress, the little spinning hourglass, the progress bar that comes on a web page to show you that it's loading is called a tittle.
Called a tittle.
Gotcha.
On Macs, we have the beach ball.
You have the what?
The beach ball on Macs.
Oh, I thought it was a pinwheel.
I think it's a pinwheel.
Pinwheel, beach ball. I like the beach ball because I can call it the bitch ball.
Orient means the sun rises in the east.
Well, there you go.
I don't know what that means. Doesn't the sun rise in the east everywhere? Isn't that like the definition of the east?
The largest city is Montevideo.
All right.
Montevideo. I can't say that name.
Montevideo.
Montevideo.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank everyone for showing up this week, everyone for being here, everyone for talking, contributing. We covered many awesome things and look forward to doing it all over again. I'm going to quit here and start hacking on a Linux box, trying to make my Raspberry Pi talk properly to a TLS server on Pandora. I've got a TLS error that just won't go away.
That's a lot of letters said in one sentence.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, letters. Bah. So I'd like to thank everyone for showing up, joining us. The questions that were submitted are live viewers that I see we have a number of, and I appreciate them. And I look forward to next week doing this same thing all over again with these wonderful human beings, which you can't see me. All you can see is Thom. But
what else do you need to see?
Really, what? He has a phenomenal camera on today. Does he not have a phenomenal camera on?
No, I got lucky.
Yeah.
And I like the accent pillows too
The accent pillows?
in the background.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, there's one over there. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Does that mean that they're ethnic if they have an accent?
But it might mean they have a language.
Linguistic.
But at this point, I have to say, you don't have to talk like me.
Oh, you don't have to talk like me. Frank?
Yeah.
No. Follow suit,
Frank,
please.
say it.
Follow suit.
You don't have to talk like me.
But we're going to ask that you think and talk every week. Talk to you again.